Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the functional diagnostic nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right, hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 425 of the Health Detective Podcast. We have a fun couple of months coming up here between July and August. You know, we have a graduate group in our world of FDN, and it's funny because Tracy, who helps me on the podcast side, I've probably mentioned her a million times before, but if you don't know Tracy, she has literally been here since pretty much day one on the podcast, helping us out, always behind the scenes. And I've posted many times in the graduate group, hey, who wants to come on? This is something that you'll always have access to as a graduate. And, you know, we normally get like 5 or 10 people reaching out each time, which is great. But for whatever reason, this particular post took off, and we have this wonderful almost 2-month stretch of just getting to interview our FDNs, which, listen, I love interviewing the big names. I like interviewing famous people in the space, but I think sometimes like we can hear their stories any day of the week. I like talking to the people that are healing right now, that are actively going through it. And I know that you guys like this too. So there's 2 things I want to shout out really quick. I was talking with our course enrollment team recently, and they said, Ev, I cannot believe how many people are booking in calls with us because they've listened to the podcast. They've listened to stories like the one that we're going to talk about today, because they're hearing from real individuals, right? People like myself that are on the journey, always constantly figuring it out, doing some trial and error, but not in a misguided way, right? In our FDN way, where we actually have a system to effectively go into this trial and error. So yeah, it's just cool to see that you guys are relating to what we're talking about so much. If you ever do want to talk to our team, all you ever have to do is go to fdntraining.com/call. That's fdntraining.com/call. You can book in with our team directly. Outside of that, the one thing I did want to shout out today is we just had a massive month in June. You guys probably saw us doing summer open house. I've only had one podcast since then. It was with Jeremy Maleka, and we were talking about the exact thing I'm going to discuss now. So it feels good to be back on the normal podcast schedules for the record. But what I wanted to shout out to you guys is the HICS conference. So just like we have kind of a mega event in June of every year, which is summer open house, this is kind of our big conference for the year. Reed's goal is to have every single calendar year us have a West Coast meetup, an East Coast meetup, and then a Central of the United States meetup, which is probably going to be in Austin, Texas, every single time, just so you guys know. But our West Coast meetup is by far the biggest, and that's because that's the home of FDN. That's where it all started. The amount of FDNs that still live in Southern California is awesome. So Jeremy and Jen Maleka, Jeremy owns Biocanic. He actually hosts this conference now called the HICS Conference, which is the Health Intelligence Exchange Network. And we are basically the main sponsor for them, one of the bigger sponsors. And last year we had over 80 FDNs there in attendance. I know as of right now, if I'm not mistaken, over 30 FDNs are already signed up, not including staff members. And if for those of you that don't know anything about conferences, if that's not your wheelhouse, about 50% of all the people usually sign up within the last 45 days that you can sign up for a conference. So if my math's correct, we'll hit well over 100 FDNs. He did give us an exclusive discount for the podcast that's good till July 15th. So if you are interested in joining us, please make sure you take advantage of this. It's 45% off the tickets. There is nowhere else publicly that's available right now. It's only the Health Detective Podcast that you can get that discount. So you could scan the QR code if you'd like to learn more. That's not a random picture, by the way. The middle of that bay is exactly where the conference is. It's on a hotel right in the middle of Mission Bay, San Diego. It is stunningly beautiful. So scan the QR code or go to HICS, HIX-live.com and use code HDP, all caps, like HDP Health Detective Podcast. That'll get you 45% off. All right. Thank you for my housekeeping stuff really quick. I want to get to our guest. So Sachi is a mother, a wife, a world citizen who loves to exercise and is a nature lover as well. She believes that prevention is the greatest cure. She is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and a certified integrative health and nutrition coach. She is passionate about helping clients achieve optimum health by coaching them with data-backed custom plans via functional testing. She specializes in acne, gut health, and autoimmune issues. So we have so much in common here. In addition to this, she also works with them as a mentor and guide who motivates and helps them be accountable to achieve their health goals. My friend, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Evan. And I've signed up for the Hicks, so I hope to see you there.
Awesome. All right. It'll be nice to meet you. Okay. So you have probably, I think it sounds like you heard the podcast before, so you might know what the first question is that I'm going to ask. And maybe it's related to acne, maybe it's not. We will get into acne today for sure, though, guys, if that's what you clicked on for. But my first question for you, though, is when did your health symptoms begin and what did they look like when they first started?
Yeah, very similar to your story. But for me, acne was my symptom, the acute cystic acne. But for me, like many others, they start pretty early. I've seen like around 9 or 10. For me, it was late teens, around 19 and 20 is when it actually started happening. And again, going from one dermatologist to another, and they kind of were giving me different antibiotics to the point where I kind of wreck my gut. And it just doesn't help. It comes back with vengeance, and you know that a lot of the acne sufferers know that they will go for some time, and then they'll come back with vengeance. It left me constipated, really bad constipated for most of the time. Like most of my 20s, I've been constipated. My gut health had really become a wreck, and my immunity had gone down, so everything that was not supposed to happen. And again, because being an acne sufferer, I had an social anxiety. I don't want to go out, things like this was the time when I started thinking about, if this is not working, is this going to be for lifelong? How is it going to work? And I started searching, and I always say that Dr. Google does help at some limit for and it obviously talked about improving your lifestyle, exercising, how's the gut brain axis, stress, and things like this, that I started implementing, and supplements, basic. Having said that, it had never gone away, because it had improved but not gone away. And then I was on dim for very long because of my own research. That really helped me, because now I connect the dots, because I can run tests and things like this, that my methylation and all of that isn't working well. So it's, I was holding up to a lot of estrogen, also because I had PCOD, and then I had my first miscarriage. And all of that makes sense now to me, that why I was going through all of that, and a lot of mood swings, and bloating, fatigue, used to forget, and still do. I'm working on that, but it's so much better. I was forgetting things. So acne being my first and most important symptom, because it's the face that you go out with, right? So it really matters. So and it was painful cystic acne. Now hindsight, I was on a dim supplement that's in, as you know, it comes out of the broccoli extract and things like this for very long, and it pretty worked pretty well with me, apart from other lifestyle changes and things like this. But at post 35, I realized that wasn't working well with me. And I wasn't sleeping well. It had really lowered my estrogen levels, and that's how I started doing the functional testing, and I got to know so many root causes that we'll talk about more, that was contributing to my acne. And it's not just a disease. It's as Reed says, that the bucket was filling up, and it had to come out. And my genetic predisposition is acne, so it would definitely come. Everything that's bothering my body comes out of through my skin. That's the way my body does give signals. So once we fix that, it just works wonder.
I like what you just said there. That's the way that your body gives signals. What I'm about to say, this is not a clinical thing. This is not medical. It's just something I've noticed over the years. I now consider acne what I again unmedically, if you will, call a primary symptom. So what I mean by a primary symptom is it's something that affects a large variety of people, and it does seem to be attributed to our modern stressors that we deal with in today's world. And because of that, it's one of the last symptoms usually to go away. Like you could maybe be healed of another disease, or at least don't have the symptoms, but yet you still deal with acne. Like I tell you or I tell people all the time, right? I had 7 different diagnosed conditions. Well, I was healing things that were like way more severe, at least medically speaking, than acne, but acne was the last one to ever get better out of those 7. So another example of primary symptoms, in my opinion, would be like certain gut issues, headaches. These are things that are affecting so many people. And since there's so many aspects that are contributing to a primary symptom, then you kind of never get it figured out, or you're playing guessing games the whole time. And it gets very confusing and discouraging. One question I wanted to ask you, because I always like to ask something along these lines when anyone comes on with acne, or talking about acne rather. Since especially this started a little bit later for you, would you give any advice now to someone that might be suffering with this? Because you talked about the shame that comes with it. And Sachi, it's a vicious cycle that I don't think people understand unless they've dealt with it. You and I talked about this off air. You don't want to go anywhere. And so guess
Yeah.
what? Stress is causing it, but now you're stressed all the time because you're embarrassed. So what advice would you have for someone that maybe is dealing with this right now?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about there are so many people that are hiding behind, in their homes, just like us, when we are going through and feel that it's not going to work out, it's never going to be improved. It is, and I always would recommend, the number one advice is there's nothing to hide about, and I am openly talking about it because I feel it should be talked about. There is something not right in your body. I mean, what I'm trying to say, there's some function that's not working right in your body. Like for me, it was detoxification, bacterial, and everything is linked, the gut brain axis. And the functional stream is going to help you, so definitely go visit the functional doctors or functional practitioners, because they would work on the root cause, and they could be multiple, you know there could be multiple causes that's creating and triggering your acne that you would feel, but it would really help you for long run, because that's the only way to go. And there's nothing to shy about or hide about, because this is natural, and there are millions of people like us who are suffering this, and that's why we are here to help. And it works so much better. It's not just your skin healing, you will feel the body healing. Everything's working in symphony. That's what
Yeah.
I can say.
And I know that there's people that obviously, I mean, people can be 50 years old, 60 years old and deal with acne. It's actually, I mean, I don't want to get into this story. It's kind of crazy because my mom didn't really ever get to meet her real dad. But we've seen pictures of him in his 50s. So think about this. This is my real grandfather, where barely anyone would have had acne, and he had cystic acne into his 50s. So if that doesn't show that this is a mix of genetics with environmental stuff, I don't know what does. But the thing I wanted to say, and I never know if I'm saying this correctly because I don't want people to get upset. There is a difference between your inherent value as a human being and your value on the dating market, because most of us are dealing with acne when we're younger. So we say, look, at least I did, when my face looked like that, I'm like, why the heck would anyone want to date me? And then I
Yes,
conflated that with thinking that I'm not valuable as a person because of it. And it's
yes,
like, no, my friend, this is it. And maybe again, this is too masculine, too logical. I don't know. But I looked at it this way. I said, okay, no, acne right now, the reason that someone would not find me attractive is because we find people that are healthy to be attractive, right? That's just something that's wired into us. We want to mate with someone who's healthy. So my
yes,
body's actually just warning this person and saying, I'm currently not healthy. So I would not be good for that reason. But that does not mean I'm not a good brother. I'm not a good son. I'm not a good friend. It might mean right now that if I want to have more dating prospects, I'm
yeah.
probably going to need to clear up my skin. So I hope people never get that mixed up, because we start to allow that shame that is real. It does affect us on the dating market, to also mean that we're less as a person. And I think that's completely false. I don't think those things are the same.
I mean, this is for the society, just like we've stopped shaming people for their bodies. It is for the society as well, that when you see an acne sufferer in public, you don't have to stop and say, what happened? This has happened to me for so long, even in my late 30s now, that people would just say, "What happened to your face? What happened?" Like literally random people. And I'm like, it's none of your business. You're not
Mhm.
supposed to, So this is for everyone, that whosoever is facing whatsoever health crisis that's you can see.
Yes.
You're not supposed to go ahead, and that's what I teach my son. If somebody doesn't have a limb, you're not going to go and say or stare at him. It's okay, it's normal, he's doing something. So this is something as a society we need to learn, not body shame people around. We're just trying to live normally, help each other.
Yes.
And second, you what you said, it's for girls, it's even tough because
Mm.
you relate girls more with beauty and how you look,
Sure.
everything about women is in society it's beauty. So
Mhm.
when you have cystic severe acne, and then the lot of scarring, men can still, as we just discussed, they still can have the beard and
Yes.
you can shove it under it, but with us that's not possible. It really hampers your confidence and
Mhm.
triggers the anxiety. And in fact, what you just said, I have a small story if you
Please.
allow me to share. I came back from home. I'm from India. I'm a South Asian. This February, and as soon as I landed, my cystic acne, they started coming back with vengeance to the places where it never had come before. Like I mostly break out here. It's very hormonal, right? All over my face, and I could not figure out why is it coming. I tried and did everything I was, and it didn't work. Nothing was working. And then I started having acute anxiety that was triggered because of acne, and then anxiety went on to rooftop. Then it was not about acne anymore, it was the anxiety and palpitation that I had actually personally never faced. Now
Mm.
because I've gone through this, I realize people with any kind of mental disorder goes through so much, and I didn't want to come out of the bed and things like this. Then of course I was like, I put myself in the right mind. I said, okay, what I've learned, I'm doing that with my clients, I need to do that with me too. It's going to be fine. So I start testing, and GI map being the first one, and the Dutch, it was so clear in my test, things that was bothering, and it's kind of contributing to my acne. And as soon as I start working on each issues that I could see on my testing, acne was the last one to go. My anxiety in a week went like, you know and I used to hear that anxiety was very much related to your liver, your detoxification, your nervous system, but it actually did. In
Mhm.
just 1 week I was like, the acne are still there, they're hurting, I cannot even touch my face, but I'm not feeling any anxiousness. Why is that? I kind of question. So this is amazing. That's why we all have to have our own life stories, because when you experience is when you get to know. And eventually the acne went away. So
Mhm.
guys, everything you can heal. There's nothing that you cannot heal. Your bodies are miraculous. If the right tools are given to us, so that's what is important.
And after this next question, we'll talk about the right tools and the things that you learned. There's just one other thing I wanted to touch on because I thought it was interesting that even before you got into the functional side of things, you mentioned that you were supplementing with DIM because you did your own research. And
Yeah.
this is another interesting thing that I think happens not exclusively in the world of acne, but I think it's overrepresented amongst acne sufferers, is since it's such a in your face symptom, right? Like you can't ignore this. It's every single day. You do go try Western medicine stuff and you find that it doesn't work the way that you wanted to. It's very common that people that deal with severe acne end up searching online, trying to find stuff. I remember, I mean, gosh, I'm 29 now. So I was probably searching this stuff. I mean, truly 20 years ago, I would have been using the internet for sure. So you're getting on weird forums and you're hearing people saying, stop eat this or do eat this or use this diet or not this diet. So I was just wondering, is that how you found out about DIM? Were you kind of, it's not that you were necessarily into natural medicine yet, but were you just like trying to find something that would work?
Yes, absolutely. I think you understand me so well. It's a great podcast because Yes, that's how I started searching. I've always been a corporate girly. I was in marketing. This was not the field that I wanted to be in, to be honest. But because of my acne and frustration from going to one doctor to another, thankfully, I had not started taking any kind of contraceptive. And I was just on antibiotics after antibiotics, and that wasn't working. Cutting the long story short, I started researching. And I changed my lifestyle. I did cut off everything that I could, and you'll understand. It did work, but the acne was still there. It wasn't that I was completely healed. And then I kind of thought about dim, and I was like, it's in a broccoli extract. There's nothing harmful, and I can try. And when I started trying it, it's really worked wonders. And I had PCOD, and I understand that my body wasn't able to detoxify, especially the estrogen from my body. You know, and I started taking it because this was like a shortcut because it was working. It improved my digestion. I was pooping so well every day. It worked wonders for me. Now the problem is that when we start trying things on our own, and I love supplementation. Everybody in the world of FDN loves supplementation, but they have their place. You can't just bring on supplementation and for very long. I thought I'll be on this forever. And for long 10 years I was on this till the point it stopped working. And it really lowered my estrogen level to postmenopausal women. I'm 38. I couldn't sleep well, I was always fatigued, things like this. And that was only, I mean, I always say it's my karma that I was already an FDNP, so I could do testing on myself, have this wonderful community to ask, share, take guidance on. And I realized you cannot take dim for so long. What I did to myself that really lowered my estrogen. As soon as I stopped taking dim, just in 2 months, and start working on other things that we'll talk about, um, everything improved again. So I was so fixated on one supplement because that was like, I'm not going to let you go. And I hope you understand because that was working for me. And that was like an easy escape, if I can say so.
Yeah, well, not only do I understand it, this is what I was hoping we'd get to, because this is why I want people to understand that the functional side of things, the actual testing, the FDN philosophy is necessary and it works, because there's really two things that can happen when you start doing your own research with this stuff and you're trusting the forums. Either nothing works and now you
Yeah.
think natural medicine sucks, or the diets don't work, so you're like, oh, I'm throwing this all out. Or in your situation, it does move the needle to some degree, actually a pretty notable degree in your case. But then again, it's going to stop working because the problem, it's not like the sole problem was just, oh, everything else is fine, I just didn't have dim. So
Yeah.
that's what I needed and now everything's perfect. So it could stop working. Or sometimes it's working better than not. And you're like, well, what the heck did I do for this week that made me get breakouts, but this next week I was fine? So acne sufferers, as much as anyone with a chronic health condition, you need a system, you need testing, you need to see that things are improving consistently over time. And it's sad to me how many people that suffer with acne probably do throw out the idea of natural medicine eventually
Yeah.
because they thought natural medicine was one supplement. They thought it was a diet for 30 days or a cleanse. That's not natural medicine.
Yes, not at all.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for people who have to actually go on things like Accutane and many other severe, medicines, pharmaceutical approach, because it's frustration. You just want to live a normal life, like,
Mhm.
and it hits you in your youth. That's even worse. It
Yeah.
acne will not hit you in your later life. It will hit you in your youth when you want to be out, you want to make friends, you want to be in a relationship. And yeah, it really hampers your confidence.
Yeah, and I think here's the good news, and we'll transition into this. I see it's bittersweet, but as this next generation is sicker and sicker, both physically and mentally, I'm shocked by how open a lot of them are to these conversations. And you probably know this already. I speak in schools, and especially after COVID, once that occurred, I went from like maybe 25%, 50% of the people would pay attention when I spoke, which was fine. I get it. I'm coming in and talking about anxiety and depression. To after COVID, I'd have assemblies with 600 kids and you can
Wow.
hear a pin drop. And I'm like, well, I didn't just become that much of a better speaker overnight. What happened here? And it's that they were relating to the message more, which again, it's bittersweet because you don't want that. But at the same time, I think people don't give kids enough credit. Their brains are still developing. They're actually very malleable and open to suggestion if you show them the right things, or how they can, yeah, if you're a teenager and you have acne, you're going to listen. If you have an answer for that, you're going to listen. So let's talk about some of this functional stuff. Once you got into FDN, one of the things that we include in tuition, of course, is the testing so that you can look at what's going on in your own body. If we went through everything, we'd probably be spending multiple hours, but I'm wondering, what were some of the biggest findings for you as you were doing the functional testing on yourself?
Yeah. So this time was my first functional testing on myself for acne, like literally for acne. So this year itself, my when I start, I always start with the gut test for all of my clients related to any health issues. We know in the functional field, everything stems from your gut, right? So I knew something is going wrong, and my biggest findings when it comes to the gut was I had a strep bacteria that's very much hanging in your limbs, right? That causes a lot of acne. It was over the roof. H. pylori, very high. That again contributes to acne with people who have acne issues. It can contribute to many other things. It talks about we does talk about the genetic predisposition, like, so it will, but for me it was giving me a lot of acne.
Mhm.
And slight overgrowth, I didn't had much of sebor overgrowth, definitely a bit of candida. That was also when the terrain is not good, it's going to really do its job. It was doing that. And then coming to the Dutch test that talks about your hormone and detoxification, because of the dim abuse. I say I've abused my body by dim, but because of the dim abuse for many years, I was at really low estrogen levels. My cortisol was over the roof. It was really high, even the cortisone. And my detoxification pathways, my methylation was only working 5%. And that makes sense that when I was not able to detoxify estrogen well from the body, and that was one of the major contributors for my acne. And that's why before PMSing, I'm breaking out more, because it's
Mm.
hard for my body to detoxify. And this was this initial findings. I also did some HTMA testing that we does to understand the mineral balancing and mycotoxins in your body. And I worked on that. That talked about I have high calcium levels. So the calcium shells were there. And not just acne, I was bloated. I was putting on so much weight. Not easy for me to reduce weight. I was also slightly hypothyroid, slow oxidation, and things like this. So then just like we've been taught, just like I work with my clients, I work with all these stresses together. First open my detox pathways, and and start working on my liver, gallbladder, kidneys, very very mildly. And as I told you, while I was on these mild detoxes that I was doing, my anxiety just went away. It was like I'm not stuck in that loop anymore, and I still have those painful cystic acne. They're angry on me, but why I'm not anxious? I was just talking to myself all the time. And then I started working on the H. pylori program and things like this. And in 3 months' time, things just changed. And I had limited funds, to be honest. So with that limited fund, but with the right testing and then taking right protocols, I was able to change my mental health, my health. I got to know so much what's happening in my body that I need to take steps on. And I'm going to do my GI map again to see where am I, to kind of retest. But what I want to share with all our viewers, and I'm sure you'll agree on me with me on this, is that right functional testing, that's why we say please test, don't guess, is very important for us to make a protocol for yourself or for the client. Before that, I was still in this functional field, but I didn't have the access of testing and no knowledge about that. So I was just trying things. As we just discussed, it was either working or not. So for example, dim worked well for me, so I kind of stuck on it for so long, unknowingly that it will also harm me. So everything has its place in our
Mhm.
lives, and our bodies are here to heal. And your skin is the largest organ, so you need, it's the last thing that will start improving, but it will.
Yeah. It's so interesting that within all of this, imagine if like you're listening for the first time about acne or whatever. We never talked about testing some type of skin thing, right? We're not like swabbing your skin and seeing what's going on there. We didn't talk about any ointments or creams or something like that. You're talking about all this internal stuff. And if you guys take nothing else from today, I know not everyone can sign up with an FDN. You can't all go through the course. We get that. But hopefully you've already picked up that you need to look at your skin as an external reflection of what's happening internally. And this is why I think so many people end up with these very interesting theories on those forums that you and I have spent probably too much time of our life on. When someone's like, oh, stop eating chocolate or stop eating
Yeah.
dairy or start
Oh my
eating
God.
dairy, but just this kind, they have the right idea that it is something internal, but they're just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks. And it's like, no, man, we got to look at these main areas of your body, see what's going on internally. And when we address that, that's when you'll start to see things reflecting more positively externally. And what's super interesting is, you said you're going to run a GI map here again. I just ran one recently, and my GI map is better than my first one, but to be dead honest with you, it's not perfect. There's still room for improvement. So this is the good news, though. We don't have to be perfect to still get some of our symptoms where we'd like. I think the testing, that's what's so cool about FDN testing. You can find someone that feels great and still find room for improvement when you look at their tests, but you can also find someone who's super sick and you can definitely find room for improvement in those cases. So I'm curious, and this is not a very FDN question. Reed would probably slap me for asking this, but I am curious if you could only run one test for those that are dealing with acne. Is there one test that you'd pick before anything else?
It's the GI map, and have also array of clients with UTI issues to autoimmunity, and this is the most helpful test that I have to run on them. And before I also want to share something. I mean, in a way I'm advertising FDNP, but I see
Sure.
people spending so much money on branded shoes and clothes and bags, and when it comes to testing, they would just shy away investing in their body. So don't wait for those symptoms to come out, honestly. And it's an investment in your body, and you'll feel happy about it. So invest in your bodies. This is what is going to be with you forever. I mean, till the time we are alive.
Yeah. Well, I like
So
that you mentioned the bags and stuff too, because what are we really trying to do with all that stuff? We're trying to look good, but
yeah,
there is nothing that's ever going to feel better than feeling confident in your own skin, literally. And it is. This is kind of funny because I feel like I have unlimited confidence now, where I can walk around, talk to anyone, and do all this stuff. But it shows that confidence is kind of relative because I'm not the ugliest person in the world. I'm not the prettiest one that's ever lived either. Truly, in person especially, I'm not. So even without the acne, it's not like all of a sudden I became some 10 out of 10. But when you accomplish something like that, the confidence goes up as if you are a 10
yeah,
out of 10. So that'll do more for you than any bags or anything ever will. By the way, we're about halfway through. We're a little over halfway through. So if you guys have any questions, particularly about acne, please drop them in the chat right now. I see, Sachi, you have like a fan club on today, so that's very cool. How many already know Sachi? Let us know in the chat. I'm getting the hunch that a few of you do, but yeah, she has a fan club on. So while we're waiting for any questions to come through, if people do want to ask them, I had something I wanted to throw at you. Maybe this relates, maybe it doesn't. Have you
yeah,
used or implemented any how should I say, any like circadian biology type of
yeah,
things into your
yeah,
protocols? Because I found that
yeah.
was very important. So
Yeah.
what were those things?
Yeah, yeah. So it was not just killing the bad bacteria, or it was very much. I'm also training myself with Primal Trust, nervous system, because I was acutely there was a lot of inflammation in my body that showed on the testing, and it was also stress, high cortisol. It was not just the bacterial infections and other things that was doing it. I was very stressed. So going out for long walks, walking barefoot on the grass, even when it was extremely cold. And I learned that from one of my great FDNP called Devane. She helped me through. That's why this community is amazing. and just free of cost, and going on for long walks, hug the trees, taking long breaths, especially leaving them, and my spiritual practice. I'm a Buddhist, so I practice Buddhism. Doing that, I can't tell you how good and how great I felt, and that really helped me align my body, because there's a gut brain axis that we all have to understand. Our body talks to each other, every system, every organ. So everything, my energy levels, when it went on to rooftop again. I used to have that slouch in around 12 and 1. There was nothing like that. I was about to go. We went on a trip to SFO, and I'm usually want to take a nap in the afternoon, and my husband is like, I have to go. And I was like, let's go out, let's do. And he's like, what's with you? I'm like, I'm not feeling tired anymore. you know so I mean, it just changes your personality. Circadian rhythm is so important. When you get up, not looking at your phone but the sunlight, that really work. These are small things, but it does add up to your lifestyle, and your body loves it. Trust us. And giving that that whatever you like to do, right? Writing journals, just chanting, for example, for me, or just sitting and meditating, anything that you just want to do for in your own space, would really help you to bring that thoughts together and have that confidence, and never losing hope. That's the most important for anybody who's suffering from anything in this world. Our bodies have the capability to heal, so do not lose hope.
Yeah.
So that these are the things that really help me mentally and physically both.
Thank you for mentioning that. I always like to ask to see if other acne sufferers had come across that as well, because for me, I needed to get the light stuff down to actually get the last few bits of my symptoms to go away. And it's funny because people will spend all this money on red light therapy, and I owned a red light therapy business. So I literally, not the panels, but I had a business where we had red light therapy in it. So I'm not against it, but I just want people to be reminded red light therapy is free, and it came from the sun originally. So if you just go
Yes.
outside in the morning, not only are you setting your circadian rhythm, but you're getting more or less a natural treatment that otherwise you'd have to spend money on. So there's times and places to use the panels. I won't get into that today, but stuff that you think is not related to acne can totally be related. I see some questions here, maybe possibly from your fan club, but these are awesome questions. So someone said, if you have acne postpartum, would there be any specific tests that one can get done to find out the real cause? Is GI map testing the right test to go for? Well, you correct me if I'm wrong. I'm almost thinking we'd probably utilize the same exact tests postpartum that we would with anyone else.
Yes, he's right. So yeah, even at postpartum or at any level, it's the basic foundational test that I always recommend to my clients, and then we start building up to see, what else testing can we do. I do not like to hover too many testing on anyone, because it sometimes take a back. But GI map, the Dutch test, and the HTMA, especially when you're dealing with acne, these three tests are like my building blocks, and then I start making the protocol accordingly.
Awesome. Oh, that's a great question. Our FDN guys, do you have courses for global audiences, especially UAE? Actually, the course itself is available there, and I am almost positive that we actually have multiple practitioners in the UAE. What I would say, and I'm sure you would do this regardless, don't go buy the whole course yet until you talk to someone, but I'll give you the link in the chat. It's fdntraining.com/call. Make sure you put that in the notes when you book in with the team, that you're calling or wanting from the UAE, and I'm positive that we can do it. I'm sorry that I don't know. It's been about a year and a half or 2 years since I've been on that team, but I remember talking to someone in the UAE, and I'm almost positive that I found out that there was a couple people working out of there because of that. So that'd be sweet. This is just a comment, but it's funny. And believe me, all this helps a lot. When Sachi said to me, hug a tree, I was like, really? But it does make you feel happy. And yeah, the craziest thing is science is now backing up some of this stuff that seemed like hippie stuff, or what is this person talking about? Um,
Yeah.
if for no other reason, if you are hugging a tree literally, right? I mean, you are actually grounding in a sense, right?
Yeah.
That is going to do that same thing. And that does change inflammation in your body. It changes how things are moving in your body. So it's kind of crazy that it's not an opinion anymore, just a wise anecdote. It's like, no, this is actually something that does something. And what a concept, right? Us humans are supposed to be outside. All
Yeah.
right. There was another question here. It's a fine question. It just didn't really directly have anything to do with acne, so I was waiting on this one. But someone said, "Is it stress that triggers the herpes, Epstein-Barr virus, etc., and other viruses, or dietary or liver dysfunction? When do you recommend testing levels of beta-glucuronidase, which shears the bond that eliminate toxins?" So let's start by saying beta-glucuronidase is a marker that's actually included on the GI map, and I'll kind of turn this into a conversation. But Sachi, I'm wondering, what was your beta glucuronidase like when you first ran it? Because mine was very high when I first ran the GI map.
Yeah, mine was also in the middle,
Okay.
similar. It was towards trending towards high. Mind you, the first time I did it, I was on dim,
Hmm.
so and still it was high. So what
Okay.
I'm trying to say, so I was trying to detoxify. So yeah, that was there. And if you say this, the stresses, if I can also answer this
Sure.
question, yeah, I mean, any kind of viruses. Definitely we always start with all the detox pathways, including your gallbladder, your liver, and your kidneys, because they do harbor in kidney and all these detoxification
Mhm.
pathways, and they are growing because things are not falling constantly well. So some way, so that's why we work on everything and not just one thing. So we always consider these liver and these pathways to be working properly. It's very important for any kind of viruses or anything that you're trying to target, to get well, and then you'll start seeing results, as soon as you start working on them. So yeah, right testing for them to see how is it working, and then start working according to that is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question in general. And it's kind of interesting because you will see this on labs. Like some people have the same exact viruses or other bacterial strains. One person has symptoms, one person doesn't, and you're
Yeah,
like, well, what's the difference? And yes, stress is probably the answer. It's just that stress means so much. Stress can
yeah,
mean mental, emotional. It could also be food sensitivities. It could be a bunch of stuff that we've listed off today, right? So, all right, let me stop there. If you guys have any more questions about acne, please drop them in. We'll probably only be able to get to one or two more audience ones if they're there, because I still have a few things I want to ask. So, Sachi, do you now work with clients with this? How long have you been doing it? All that kind of stuff. I'd love to know that information.
yeah. I definitely work as an FDNP,
Mhm,
and I've graduated last year, August, and
mhm,
I was already a health coach, so I was working at that capacity. And then I also started using FDNP tools. That's like a game changer, you know that. And I work with an array of clients, specializing in autoimmunity that has become so common these days. With fertility issues, skin issues, and gut health being predominantly my core. So these are the things, and yeah.
awesome. And I know that when you figure out. Well, I guess you were already doing this, so you already had clients, which is great. Never mind, I'll skip that question. So then I will ask this though: do you have any, to the degree that you're able to share, do you have any like cool client transformation stories? Because I think it's one thing for people to hear from individuals like us. We are as passionate as you can be about this,
Yeah,
and they might say, "Well, hey, well, yeah, these guys live it. That's how they're able to do it." But it's like, no,
yeah,
you can still operate in a world that's not fully into functional medicine and still get better. So, do you have
yeah.
any cool client stories like that?
Yeah. I have one very dear friend of mine. She started working with me. She's there as well.
Mhm.
So my dear friend, she was Urvashi. She was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis. So that's an autoimmune for the spine, and she's been working with the best of the best doctors, and they put her on a steroid, because they said this is something you have to deal with for lifelong. And all her testing start worsening, with the medicine that was only just taking away the pain for her, but all of her testing start worsening, like her liver markers, everything start worsening. And then we started the program, and it's been 3 months positively. And with and she we when we tested her gut, she had multiple parasites. Obviously, H. pylori is always hanging out with something, so it was already there. Overgrowth, and no elastase and no SIGA, because she was on immune suppressant, right? So we started working on that, and her hormones, and her detox being the number one for me, and the parasites, and all her testing. She just had her testing, all her testing kind of improved so much. Like, she never had great iron, and it has nothing to do with the detox people say, but I say everything is connected, right? So her iron markers, everything, her liver function, everything fell into place. And she was so happy that and it's, I always say, health is a journey. It's not,
Mhm.
just like marriage is an all constant work. It's not going to so health is a journey. So it's not that there is an end and she's done and we are on next protocol. Okay, now we've worked on one, so we're trying to achieve. And she has more expectations from me than her own doctor, and that's the winning thing for me, to be honest. That the way she talks about her, that she was changing my medicine, I argued with her, and I have no confidence on her. And I was like, okay, now what's our next protocol, Sachi? And I'm like, okay, now we are on this, let's test this. So yeah, she's improving tremendously, and we are so happy with the results already, and we're just 3 months in.
That's
So,
awesome.
and
I'm
she's
glad that you have.
working.
Sorry,
Yeah, sorry.
I
And
was just
she's
going to say I'm
working
glad
with
you.
talking.
You go.
Yeah.
You go. I'm done.
Okay. So she's also working with the doctor simultaneously, so it only was worsening her test results. So just taking away that pain from the steroid, and everything else was falling in the bucket. And how working with me, I mean, I'm not how working functionally really is helping her put that root cause in place. So yeah, she's happy, I'm happy, because client win is the most important.
Mhm. All I was going to say is it's actually really amazing how many people that you have in your life that are so supportive of this journey. It sounds like in this philosophy, sometimes those of us that are starting this work, the most resistance that you can face, unfortunately, is from friends and family. So they're very lucky to have you, and vice versa. Really cool. This is a big question. I just didn't want to ignore it because this person's been so active the whole time. So, someone with IBS, very weak immunity, and has body acne, what tests would you recommend to them? And Sachi, I want to hear from you as well, but I want to explain something here. So, when I asked what was the one test that Sachi could run, you might have noticed I also said I'm being a bad FDN here by asking that. And the reason that I asked that is because we always try to start with these FDN foundational tests, regardless of what the person is dealing with. And here's why. We didn't just pull this out of thin air. When someone gets chronically ill in today's world, whether it's IBS, whether it's acne, both, an autoimmune disease, other gut issues, or whatever, there is a predictable kind of series of events that happens. So, one, the person is under chronic stress in some way or another, right? That happened. So, hormones are going to be out of whack. Another thing that's going to occur is your gut gets compromised, because you guys might have heard this before. When you're in that fight or flight constantly, the body says, well, we don't need to break down food properly because we need to focus on you staying alive right now. So fight or flight prevents you from breaking down foods and doing all that stuff properly. So then what happens? The gut becomes compromised, digestion goes down, you become more prone to parasitic and bacterial infections. Oh, now you develop food sensitivities. Oh, now there's a backed up liver and all that kind of stuff. So our tests actually look at all of those things I just said and more. We're following that predictable path that almost anyone who goes through chronic illness will follow through. So the reason I'm not trying to avoid your question here, but we would actually still recommend starting with the FDN foundationals. But also, just to give a direct answer, listen, I'm happy with humoring it. I'd be a hypocrite to not answer this because I asked it myself. So, Sachi, if you could only run one test, would this still be, I'm guessing, the GI map for this one or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. It's a good
Yes.
question, though. And if this person, that I did think it was the same person that asked about UAE, this will be something that's important to understand. If you are considering going through the FDN course, you'll want to fully grasp this concept. because it's important. If you understand why we're running these foundational labs, you're like, oh, I get how this can work just as well for IBS, autoimmune, skin issues. So good question. Unfortunately, we are getting towards the end of our time here. So I want to make sure we have more than enough time to shout out your actual business. So if people are interested in working with you, by the way, you're a fantastic speaker and presenter. You come across as very confident. I don't know if you've had to do this stuff outside of this, but I would like to work with you. So where can people
Me
find you?
too. Yeah. So yeah, I'm mostly very active on Instagram, and so you can search me as coach. Yeah, health coach Sachi. So DM me, follow me, and I'm mostly available there. And there's also a website, but it's mostly Instagram. I get a lot of leads through Instagram. So yeah, I'm mostly, you can find me there, and hence we can get in touch from there.
Cool. All right, the signature question to finish up the show today. And this, if you haven't heard this question before, it does not just have to be about acne, autoimmune. It could be anything that comes to your mind. So the question is this: if we could give you a magic wand and you could wave it and you could get all of our viewers and listeners to do just one thing for their health. So that means you can get us to all start doing one thing, or you can get all of us to stop doing one thing. What is the one thing that Sachi gets us to do?
Yeah, stop, guys. Don't guess. Please test. It's very important. If you really want to invest, save, and invest in something, this is the first thing you should do, and the last thing you should do. That would really, that in the longer run, that's going to save you money, save you health, literally save your mental peace, everything. And it's coming from a chronic sufferer myself. Acne is a chronic issue, and you'll agree with me.
Mhm.
So we all have the capability and ability to heal. So please don't guess. Please test.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on today. If you guys enjoyed this information today, please just drop a thank you in the chat. At the very least, make sure you go follow her on Instagram. Even if you're not trying to be a client, I think it's really important to highlight these voices and make sure that they get this information out to as many people as possible. I always say, I don't care what anyone does. If they want to use fully Western medicine, fully functional, or both, that's fine, but they need to have the choice. And if they don't know that the information exists, they don't have the choice. So please make sure you follow Sachi. And again, thanks for being on with us today.